that is one of the things I'm getting more and more excited about, and that is trying to get our stories recorded, stories of like A.D. Clewell or his sons and grandsons, that kind of thing. And there's a whole host of our family members who have those kind of interesting stories. I would love to get those things recorded so that we can share them with other family members. Um, I don't have his permission yet, and I want to make sure I do. One of our Clewell cousins by the name of Chris Clewell, who lives in Minnesota, and he is he's a professional photographer. He showed me he's got some videos on YouTube where he's talking to his grandfather, and he's just letting his grandfather reminisce. And I thought that is an outstanding treasure that he'll be able to give to his kids and his grandkids, and be able to remember those, be able to hear about those stories that happened to grandpa and great grandpa, etc. So I would love to see more and more of that happening among our family.
Richard,
Yes.
Just to interrupt, I wanted to say that Chris's grandpa is on the screen now. That's Frank and Phil. His middle name is Philip. He goes by Phil. Frank Clewell. The icon says Irene. That's my mom. She's sitting next to him. So Chris is my nephew.
Oh, okay.
And that's Phil Clewell. He is a descendant of George. And he's the grandfather that Chris was interviewing. And those were wonderful interviews.
Yes, that is such a treasure. Absolutely, it's a treasure.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see more of our family doing that kind of a thing. I don't know if I should start this with an apology. I'm working on a website. I'm just not as technical, as savvy. You know, I'm almost 70 years old, and I don't have a 4-year-old grandson who can do all this kind of stuff. But I'd like to see that kind of stuff published so our family can know more about other family members. That's one of the reasons I asked Nancy to share that information.
Light over there. You get it turned up as much as possible.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons why I asked Nancy to share that information about A.D. Clewell. Most of us would not know about his struggles and helping to settle that segment of Kansas and that kind of a thing. And there's amazing things that others members of our Clewell family have done. Probably most of you don't know we had a general in World War II who did some interesting things. One of our Clewell members helped to develop some of the offshore drilling equipment with Exxon Oil. There's one of our Clewells has pottery that they've not been able to reproduce the patina, the finish on the pottery. And some of you probably know other Clewells who have done some really amazing and outstanding things. So I would love to get this recorded and have that put on our web site so other Clewells can learn about other members of our family. So that's just a vision I have. That's something I'd like to see happen. I don't know how it's all going to work, but we'll just have to do what we can. Any other thoughts?
Well, I think Richard, like maybe what you should do is write down these things that you're thinking of doing, and then just reaching out and like you just did and say, hey, can you do this? Like, and then try to get volunteers. If there's no volunteers to actually help you do it or accomplish it, then it's not to be done right now. But what I'm sure there's going to be enough things where you will have people helping you that can get these projects done. Like reach out and ask people to help you, because you can't do it all by yourself.
No. I've got probably over 200 photos of either members of our family or their gravestones and information like that. It just takes time to get it all uploaded. But anyway, well, we're getting there. So is everybody's genealogy all up to date? I have all the names of your grandchildren and great grandchildren and all that kind of good stuff.
Never.
No, I haven't.
That's a
sent it.
place to start. You guys got to add in the information. I think
Yeah.
I've got mine up to date for our side of the family. But it would be interesting if there was a way to send out, like a couple of years ago, I asked you about if you could send out the Ephraim Laux tree to me, and you sent me like 20 pages of family from Ephraim, and I was able to add stuff back into, I think, to correct stuff. But that was good because it gave me the ability to check the database that that has been in your family for quite a few years.
Well, the database is right for volume 1 and volume 2. That's the basis. And then whatever people fill in after that, I've added over the years. But that's the basis, volume 1 and volume 2.
Right.
And unfortunately, even as I was adding information, there were a couple of errors that at one point, so-and-so was born as a child at this date, and then when they're adults and here's their children, they get the date a second time, but it's a different date. It's kind of like, okay, so it's part of the fun. Welcome to genealogy.
Yeah.
Richard, where do I send my information?
If do you have that address, myclewels.com, myclewels at gmail.com?
No.
That would be the best place to send it right now. I'm so glad I created that little web page, or that little myclewels with an S.
Yeah.
MyClewells at
At
gmail.com.
Right. .com. And then I can send you all the updates. I have information for myself and my 2 daughters, but
Okay.
even information about me is different. And as far as my daughters, they're now married. I have grandchildren. So I do have information that I can send that would update that.
Yeah.
And I'm Sharon, by the way. My husband's name is on my picture with the engine behind me, the locomotive.
Okay.
But I have some that I could add to it and correct
Excellent.
some things that I've seen.
Excellent.
I'm curious, has anybody else besides me ever heard the name pronounced Clewell?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Many times,
They do that
not
to me,
correctly,
yes.
but many times.
Yeah, that's how I actually got the a part of anything with the Clewell family. Because I met a neighbor and we started talking about where we lived and this and that. And she said her family's name was Clewell. And I said, well, that's really funny because my family name back then was the Clewells. And she said, how did you spell it? Well, it was spelled the same way. But then I also heard of some that actually spell it Claywell. But I'm curious. And then of course, Louisa, when she came, she was a Clewell. So it's gotten changed over time.
Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. There's a Claywell spelling of Clawell. There's a Clay with a Claywell. There's a Clewell spelled with a Klewell. There's some other variations, but keep in mind some of this is when Clabel came in with a V. Well, that's the way the Germans would pronounce it. They would have to spell it with a W. So if the Germans would have pronounced Clewell, it would be CLA with a WELL. And so at that time, they didn't have any strict conventions on spelling and punctuation and grammar. And so you're going to get all these strange little variances, but that's pretty common. Oh, well, I think about it. Nancy,
Yes.
Nancy, are you there? The name is Shenik. Say it with me, Shenik.
Janet. Janet.
You're an eka.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say Shonik, Shunik, Shenik,
Janet.
Shen. Pretend the O's not there. Just Sehen. It's a German word. See, with the Germans, they have on some vowels they have two little dots above them. Well,
The
in
umlaut.
English, they can't show it.
Yeah.
An umlaut, yes, exactly.
an
And so,
umlaut.
in order to give an English spelling, they took the dots away and they put an E right beside it, and that's why you get these strange OE kind of spellings, and a lot of people don't know how to pronounce it. So we locals just pronounce it Shenik. That's
Janet.
That's it.
oh, everybody does that. So don't and let me also correct you. The town of Bethlehem has only 2 syllables. It's Bethlehem.
Bethlehem.
Come on,
Bethlehem.
get it right. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Bethlehem.
Bethlehem.
Bethlehem. Okay.
I was born and raised there, and I say Bethlehem.
Well, you're wrong. Oh
And
gosh.
my family was born and raised there. We all say Bethlehem. You know, my parents, my grandparents.
Yeah,
I
we
think it's
locals.
just a matter of,
Yeah.
you know,
We
how
locals-
you want to say it.
We locals-
I may have mentioned this one time before when we were talking, when we were meeting. I know Donna had done something once before, but I actually lived in Germany in a place called Karlsruhe. And if you read Volume 1, the history, you'll find out that Louisa signed her indentured papers, I believe, in Karlsruhe, Germany.
Yes,
And
correct.
I lived in Karlsruhe, but at the time, I didn't know anything about Maria. And I wish I would have, because I would have researched it out there and
Yeah,
gotten some more information.
I've been to the town. I visited every place that
You've been
they
to
were at.
Karlsruhe? Yeah,
to Auerbach and Baden-Durlach, the little
right,
village outside
Auerbach
of,
and Baden.
yeah, which is in Karl, it was part of the outside of, it's still part of the.
Right, it's kind of like Fountain Hill is
Yeah.
of Bethlehem.
Yeah, I have quite a
Or
few
Buffalo.
pictures. I have a book that they gave me. Actually, at the moment, I can't find it, but the locals gave it to me in 2009, I guess, when I was there. Yeah.
What is the book about? The town?
So there's quite a lot there. It's definitely worth visiting, but you have to talk to someone who can help you understand what you're looking at. There's a place where all the I gotta finish what I'm talking about. The Huguenots, when they settled in there, and they spent their 25 years or so, and they were all Germanized. There's a little book, and I it's just at the moment I'm not exactly sure where it is. It was published. It's not really even like a booklet. It has advertisements. It was a like a 200th anniversary of them being there, and it talks. This stuff is quite difficult to find, and it explains how they came, where they lived, like the group in general. I think it wasn't many families, 20 to 40 families.
Well, I hope you find the book.
Yeah, I have it. It's just in the midst of all the research I'm doing. It's just temporarily. I'd go pull it right this minute, but I don't know where it is right this second.
You came prepared. That wasn't.
So should we try to talk about a family reunion?
We can.
Yeah, if you want to run it.
Thanks, Conrad.
You're welcome. I put in my 50 years. It's time
I know
somebody
you
else pick up the
did.
mantle.
I know you did.
There's actually a paperback or book. It's a trilogy about the Huguenot connection and it's written by Paul Monk, M-O-N-K. It is a wonderful story. It is a novel, but it's it's based on history of the Huguenots and the issues they had in Switzerland, and then moved to France and what they went through. It's a wonderful paperback book. If anybody, you could probably find it on Amazon.
What's it called?
It's actually, they're called Huguenots, not
Huguenot.
Huguenots, which is something I learned. The Huguenot Connection trilogy, and it's written by Paul C.R. Monk, M-O-N-K.
There's also a trilogy we talked about the last time we got together, In the Shadow of the Sun King, by Golden Keys Parsons, that also talks about the early Clewell history and comes forward. I just got the book 2 days ago from the
Ed was talking about.
a place, so I haven't gone through it, but I started the first chapter, and it's got the little town of Clewell and the town in there, so it'll be interesting
And
to see
which
what
one is this?
I wean.
What's the
get from
title
that.
again?
The name-
So
what's the
the
title?
author is Golden, first name Golden, Golden. Middle
Yes.
name is Keys, Keyes. Last name is Parsons, Parsons. And it's a trilogy. She's got about 7 books out, but the 3 that are part of the trilogy are In the Shadow of the Sun King. The second one is The Prisoner of Versailles. The third is Where Hearts Are Free.
Okay. Well, this trilogy is all in one book. They composed it in one book. And it's Merchants of Virtue,
Yep.
Voyage of Malice, and Land of Hope.
Yeah, I found
They're
that
all in
particular
one
set of,
book.
I found that set out on Amazon. I put a link in the chat session there.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I'm enjoying the book.
But people may want to go out and copy that quickly.
Excellent. Yeah, Golden is one of our Clewell family members, and that's what makes it kind of interesting.
Well, Richard, this is actually a different author, Paul C. Monk. So I think there's a
Yeah,
couple of
that's the
things that
one.
sounds like going
Yeah.
under the trilogy kind of title there.
Yeah, they're 2 different authors. And Paul C.R. Monk, it's also fictional, right?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a fiction, but there's a lot of history in here. Now, I
Mhm.
haven't come across any as yet, unlike the other book. This one has other family names and things in it, but it's quite good as far as learning about what the Huguenots went through, and the discrimination and their fears of the problems they were having with the Catholic Church. And it's really, really very interesting what they had to go through in order to find their way.
Anything else?
You
So-
may have talked about it, but did George and France and their mother, did they flee from Germany or France? It was right on the borderline.
They actually fled from Switzerland and went from Switzerland into France, and then
No, the opposite.
They
Okay,
settled in
and
Baden. They left the Margraf of Baden with their paperwork.
yeah, and then they went to Germany after France.
Well, I always heard that they fled in the night because of their afraid of their lives, of losing their lives. They'd been warned that they might be persecuted, and the father had already disappeared mysteriously.
Yes, I think I heard that.
Yeah.
Part of that story is in volume 1.
Okay.
Yeah, France wanted to become a one religion country. And that was Roman Catholic, and the Huguenots wanted to have their beliefs. And so they had to flee to protect themselves.
They were French Protestants.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 I got a little joke I might tell you about the Germans. When I was just a kid, just in grade school, we was eating supper one night. It was when World War II was going on. And I said, I'd like to see a German, see what they look like. Mother said, just look at your dad.
So both the Clewell side of my family and the Laux side of my family had to leave France because of that religious persecution of the Catholics coming back in, eliminating all the land possessions that they had for any of the Protestants. So the Huguenots and the Calvinists and all the reformers, whether they might have been Lutheran or otherwise, that were landowners, but not Catholics, were actually had all of their lands and all of their possessions taken from them by force. And so they had to kind of escape. And that's why a lot of them went to Geneva, because it was kind of a free territory. Then a lot of them went up into like Frankfurt and Wiesbaden, up into southwestern Germany. So it was a tough time 500 years ago for these folks and these families. That between they lost that Edict of Nantes was rescinded, and that was the Edict of Nantes was the document that they had that gave them religious freedom. And when I think it was Pope or Charles V, when he took over France, he basically sided with Pope Leo X at the Catholic Church and made it into a Catholic community. And so, I mean, it happened overnight, but everybody kind of had either they lost their property or they die fighting for it. And that's probably what happened to Louise's husband, the Clewell that was killed. He probably fought for his property and then lost both his life and his property.
And as I understand, Louisa and Francois did not know each other until they left their areas and met somehow in Germany, in what's called the Palatinate. They're somewhere in Southwest Germany. And why Francois ended up dying, we do not know. If it was a sickness or if he went back to help a brother or another family member. He's gone. He's out of the picture. But they met in Germany and they had their two sons there, and he ends up disappearing. And that's how she marries her second husband, Gefellern, Johannes Gefellern. And I have a paper by Marion Masland, and she, we forget about how they left the Palatinate and went to Amsterdam. Well, that's a very treacherous trip back then. There were just all kinds of what do they call them, the highway robbers that they had to deal with. Who knows how many little taxes they had to pay along the way for safe passage. So they finally got to Amsterdam, jumped on the ship called the Billender Townsend, and then they would eventually get to the colonies. But they did not have an easy life. This was quite a struggle, and so I've been. In fact, Peter's here, and he'll be able to chime in with a whole lot more. We need to do a DNA project and trace some of the male genealogy and see if our ancestors are really French. Are they Spanish? Are they more German? And that's another thing I want to see happen. I just came across a couple other names that I want to ask about participating, but we can Peter can explain a whole lot better through the male line. We can begin to trace our lineage back, hopefully beyond Francois, and get, several generations past him. Peter, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. The Y chromosome, which is what makes men men, is it is unchanged. So from one generation to the next, that Y chromosome is exactly the same. There may be small amounts of mutations, but in reality, my great grandfather on, going up the side, male to male to male to male, his was identical to mine. So we have some of that for several generations. There's 300, we had the 300th anniversary of the Laux family down in York, Pennsylvania. We got all the men together who thought they were from Laux descent, and they all took the genealogy test, and every single one except one had the same Y chromosome out of the 65 men who took the test. So the problem is you have to get some of the DNA from previous generations. So the oldest of the family members that are out there right now, if we can get their DNA, that will help some of the younger family members when they look at their DNA, compare it to their grandfathers, or maybe their great grandfathers if they're still alive. If you can have some sort of way, then you can track that to see the Y chromosome. At that point in time, then you go to the different Clewells in the different areas of the country, and you try and all get them to do the same sort of thing. And if you wind up having matching Y chromosomes, whether they were born in Kansas or Iowa or in Shenneck or wherever, if they all have that same Y chromosome, that gives you the database across the generations. So it's kind of a fun project to try and get it further back into the Palatine region of Germany. Would have to find somebody that believed they were from the Clewell lineage. And that would be cool, because in the Laux side of the family, we actually have both Clewells and Lauxes in that mix, but we have some of the Lauxes that were like in Mexico and Argentina and northern Canada, and France. We had them all take the genealogy test, and the Y chromosomes were identical across the board. So it was kind of a fun experiment.
Richard, are we going to be able to extend this? I'm seeing 3 minutes and counting.
The answer is no.
Okay.
No.
Peter, so very quickly, what service do you recommend to do this? And can people, males who are Clewells, can they just do it at home and send it in? Or does it is it cost effective, whatever, to do it like you do with the Lauxes at a reunion?
So I don't know that it'd be cost effective to do it at a specific place or have a specific testing site, but the one that we did for the Laux family, we did through Family Time DNA, because they actually had a Y chromosome evaluation site. But I think if you get your genealogy, or if you get your genetics done, and you ask them for the Y chromosome test, that should give you the information that you need to look. And then there is a national database of looking at the DNA properties and to see whether or not you're family members. I'll try and find some of that, maybe put that on that myclewell at gmail.com so that Richard has it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Peter is kind of addressing is I would be disqualified because my mother was the Clewell, but and Peter would be disqualified for the Clewell line because somewhere along the way, a mother, grandmother, whatever, that's how we were brought in. But someone with the last name of Clewell,
a male with the last
correct.
name Clewell.
Correct.
Jerry.
Yes, and I'll be contacting him.
I can't get my husband or my boys to spit in a tube. They refuse.
Yeah, most of those tests you take a Q-tip and wipe the inside of your mouth, or you might spit into a little vial, something like that. But Ancestry.com's got their tests. What is it? 23andMe. There's
Yeah, but I don't know, Richard, if they do have, I mean, they may, but I don't know if they're doing the Y chromosome test.
yeah, they've got tests out there. Yeah, I've been looking at
Yeah.
it, and yeah, they're out
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a great
So
meeting.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how much time we have left.
less
But,
than a minute.
This
Was
is-
the
this
first
has been
part
good.
recorded? I messed up my time zone change. Was the first part recorded by chance?
Yes, it was, and I saw it converting into